The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was clear in this matter and cautioned us about his correct status. Do not exaggerate in praising me as the Christians praise the Son of Mary, for I am a slave, so call me the slave of Allah and His Messenger. In reality, llāh illāha illallah, the message of every prophet from the beginning of time, is sufficient for us alone in establishing the greatness of Allah and worshipping Him alone. The addition of attesting to the prophethood of Muhammad to llāh ilāha illallah is necessary for acknowledging the final prophet and, by implication, the final revelation to humanity, the Quran. It is a declaration of identity and affiliation to the Ummah of the Prophet Muhammad. The significance of this is not an affinity with the Prophet Muhammad, but rather following the prophetic methodology of worshipping Allah alone. In other words, His manner of prayer, the various rulings of revelation, and the Prophet's explanation. It is only this methodology that is acceptable to Allah. It is for this reason the three questions in the grave are: who is your Lord, what is your deen, and who is your Prophet? So the Shahdatayn can only be understood as submitting, invoking, serving, ascribing divinity to, and praising Allah alone. Secondly, believing that Muhammad ibn Abdullah is a prophet of Allah, that whatever he says regarding religious matters is revelation and true, and following his way is the only way to submit, invoke, serve, and ascribe divinity to Allah and to praise Allah alone. The Shahdatayn must not be misconstrued as a joining of Allah and His Messenger. There is no joining of anything or anyone with Allah. His oneness cannot be compromised. He is the only and the absolute. Even joining His beloved slave cannot be tolerated. He stands alone in His majesty. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, the best statement said by any prophet is, لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. The best supplication is that which is made on the day of Arafah. The best of it is what was said by myself and the prophets before me. There is no God but Allah alone, without any partners. Unto Him belongs the dominion and all praise, and He has power over all things. This concept cannot be diluted in any manner whatsoever. However, over time, we have added the second statement to give credence to His Messenger and other articles of Iman. This should be our sole intention while saying the second part of the Shahada. In fact, they are entirely separate and are two separate statements. The first, I testify there is nothing worthy of submitting to except Allah. Second, and I testify Muhammad is the slave and messenger of Allah. This formulation must be understood as a clear distinction and not an inclusion. Notice that it contains the statement I testify twice. The first testification scope is for Allah's lordship and sole right to worship and submission. In comparison, the scope of the second testification has no bearing on the first. It is a distinct declaration that Muhammad is a slave of Allah and has been tasked with delivering the revelation of Allah. This formulation is emphasized in statements in the Quran such as قُلْ أَتِيُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ, say, obey Allah and the Messenger, and يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, O you who believe in Allah and His Messenger. Allah distinguishes between Himself and the Prophet in these statements by mentioning Himself first and then separating with the conjunction and the Messenger or His Messenger. Likewise, the Shahdatayn is two separate statements. The first concerns Allah's sole right to worship and submission, and the second concerns how one should perform that worship and be steadfast in the belief of oneness. This must be clear in our intentions when stating the Shahdatayn. It cannot be allowed even for a second that the Prophet Muhammad is included alongside Allah in His divinity. We must not make any distinction between the prophets. As Allah commanded, we make no distinction between any of His messengers. The second part of the Shahdatayn serves a particular purpose, our identity as members of Muhammad's Ummah, not that Muhammad has a right over other messengers. The joining of these two testimonies is done purely for our identity as Muslims. However, a clear distinction in our minds must be maintained at all times between Creator and the created.